You are listening to the Marketing 32 Show with your host, Brett Allen.
Hi, and welcome to the Marketing 32 Show. I'm Brett Allen, your host, where I connect with leading individuals in the dental industry, industry experts, leading dentists, and we uncover the latest strategies and insights and innovations into growing a thriving dental practice. This episode is brought to you by our team here at Marketing 32, where I think we're the only dental marketing company that I know of that is fully invested in your growth, to the point that we have a performance guarantee. So if you're not growing, we don't get paid. So we are invested in your growth. If you need some help growing your dental practice, reach out to us at marketing32.com and let's see if we'd be a great fit to work together. Quick shout out today to Dr. Martin Mendelsohn. You'll have to go listen to his interview that we did recently on the Marketing 32 Show. We talked all about mindset and what it means to be part of a team. And I got to thank Dr. Martin Mendelsohn for introducing me to Ryan Vett, who's our guest today. Ryan is a USA Today best-selling author, international keynote speaker, and entrepreneur who has advised Fortune 500 companies and scaled startups to hundreds of millions of dollars in valuation. With a deep expertise in marketing, customer experience, and generational dynamics, he has helped brands drive innovation and lasting growth. His insights have been featured in major media outlets like ABC, NBC, CBS, and Forbes. And he's even got a new book out, Speak Gooder. You'll have to go look at that one. Ryan, welcome to the show. Thanks for being on.
Brett, thanks so much for having me. And Martin, if you're listening, thanks for the connection.
Yeah. Excited to dig a little bit into your story and talk about leadership, talk about motivation, what it is that you're doing in the industry.
Absolutely. Well, I have a unique path into dentistry, and I'll sum it up shortly with the fact that in my background in some venture capital-backed startups, I was asked to join a founding team of a medical device company whose primary launch market was dentistry. At the same exact time, my wife was in dental school. So my connection to the industry is unique, special, and out of all the industries I've been in over the years, from bizarre industries that people don't even know are whole industries to mainstream industries, I think dental is always has a special place in my heart.
Yeah, it's a great industry. I've been in the dental space now 8 years, a little bit over that. Love the people, love the work they do. It is a unique community for sure.
It is.
Well, so let's talk about your vantage point in the industry. You work in Speaking Consulting Network. You have that organization that helps dental speakers. What are some of the things that you're seeing that's happening in the industry lately that's exciting or might be of value to our listeners?
Yeah, I think like all industries, the last 5 years have kind of been a big reset for many industries. It was kind of 2020 was a leveling of the playing field for leaders, for executives, for industries as a whole. And we're really in a phase, fast forward half a decade later, which is crazy to say, that we're really in a phase of kind of re-identifying ourselves. And a lot has happened at the same time in the world. And I think one of the things that we've seen a big shift from a generational perspective, which is one of my big passions, is you see Gen Z now fully in the work or becoming fully in the workplace. So, in 2020, millennials had fully entered. Now Gen Z, we're 5 years in, and almost 6 or 7% of the workforce today is Gen Z, and that's going to increase by several percentage points each year for the next 5 to 10 years. So, we're seeing a very, very new trend of just a different generation with different mindsets and thoughts on work, on what's valuable, what's important, and that brings new work ethics and new communication opportunities.
Yeah, what do you see? So I get asked all the time when I'm talking with dentists, the struggle of hiring new people and new expectations and like that dynamics of a new generation coming into the workforce. What are some of those things that you're seeing that might be new and like challenging potentially for a business owner, a practice owner to handle?
Yeah, I think we see several things at play. And when I get the opportunity to speak in any industry about generational dynamics, it's always important to understand what generation you're in, what biases you naturally have as a result of your generation. And I know bias is such a strong word these days, but preconceived notions.
Yes.
and then as a result of that, how is that going to frame the way in which you look at the incoming generation? What's interesting is we still have about a quarter of the workforce that's baby boomers, and many of them retired early. And then there's been this slow in retirement, and so they're kind of working out to the early retirement in 2020, and then a lot of them are now continue to work. So there was this weird like cliff where you see boomers leave the workplace, but now they're still there. And boomers often, demand respect and have this authoritative desire to air their accomplishments. They believe in quantity of work over necessarily quality. It doesn't mean it's low quality of work, but working 12 hours is more important than working 8 and getting the same done for boomers. And generalizing here. Then you've got Gen X. And Gen X is arguably, in a lot of literature points to this, one of the best generations currently in the workforce, because they were latchkey kids. They were self-starters, and they had an opportunity to, if you tell them to do something, they're going to put their head down and get it done. Then you have millennials. We know all the lazy, entitled, disrespectful, all the attributes that go with millennials. I debunk a lot of those myths in one of my earlier books, and then we have Gen Z. And I think what's so interesting from Gen Z, you're seeing it swing back. A lot of these actually fall and have personality traits like Gen X. They are self-starters. They're going to be more resourceful. They've been digital natives on their phone the whole time. So they're going to pull out their phone, go to Google or go to ChatGPT and find out how to solve a solution. But they're doing that in a different way than Gen X did. And so I think in some respects, they're going to be so far what we're seeing is they're being welcomed well into the workforce. But then we're also seeing some pushback on their obsession with technology and how integrated that is into their lives.
Maybe efficiency, understanding it from a standpoint of, hey, I can do this with 2 clicks versus spending an hour or something, right? Yeah.
Right. And that inherently caused a conflict with boomers and millennials. And we're going to see the same thing with boomers and Gen Z. Gen X is normally okay with efficiency if it's being done well. But we definitely see that rub and that communication gap across the generations there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, let's kind of segue into leading in the workplace. You've certainly got a lot of experience with the organizations you've been involved with, your background with startups. I think I remember, right, you started your own company at 14 and grew that pretty sizably before you even went to college. You guys should look into Ryan's history. Go to his website, ryanvet.com, and dig. But so you've been in various leadership roles. Speaking to a practice owner, someone who's managing, a team of 10, managing all that comes with a business. What are some leadership tips or maybe some epiphanies you've had over the years that could be of help to a dentist who's a practice owner?
Yeah, I think the bottom line is leadership's hard, and that's okay, and it's okay to admit that. And I think whether you're leading one person or you're leading hundreds of people on a team, it's still equally hard. You still are bearing the weight of having other people that are dependent on you. And so that's the doom and gloom answer, right? That's not motivational at all. But I think understanding that and realizing that, and then realizing there's a bunch of other leaders out there. There's fellow dentists out there. There's fellow small business owners out there that are dealing with the same stuff. The people who keep showing up late to work, the people who have an excuse for everything. Their dog, it's definitely the person whose dog ate their homework every single day in high school. These are common problems. And a lot of times when they're happening to us, it feels like it's the end of the world. They're only happening to us. But I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I have for anybody in a leadership position is surround yourself with 3 different people. And here's the 3 people I always try to keep in my life. The first, I call it a forerunner. It's the person who's running ahead of you. It's the person who's running the torch. You think of the Olympic Games, the first person to light the cauldron. It's the person who's been there before. They can point out the potholes. They can tell you where the detours are before you've ever come down the road. And then the next, probably most important person to have is your running mates. And this is where I think a lot of leaders fail, because leaders feel afraid to show vulnerability and insecurity as a whole, right? We feel like we have to be buttoned up and polished. And the reality is we're humans trying to lead other humans. And we're always going to fall short. Not a single one of us is perfect. And so for me, the most valuable thing in my life is these running mates, people who are generally in the same stage of life, in the same stage of business and work, that are running alongside, and we're holding hands through this thing called leadership. And when one of us falls, we're on the chain and we're pulling them back up. And when I fall, they're picking us up. And I think that might be one of the most valuable people you can put in your life. And the third type of person is the person that's a few steps behind, because when you have an opportunity to share with someone, or bring someone along, mentor someone, what I find is when I'm trying to think about how to explain that to someone else, I'm taking those experiences and translating that into insights, which I then can hopefully present as wisdom to that person who's a few steps behind.
Yeah, that's great advice. Knowing you're not alone and surrounding yourself with mentors at those different levels, I think that's definitely wise. One of the things that I've learned in business is that this is one of the things I learned early on and continue to have to learn over and over, is that there are problems to be solved and problems to be managed.
That's good.
And maybe it's just my personality, but for the longest time, I looked at all the problems in business, because your business is always going to be broken. There's always something
Yep.
that you need to be working on and improving. But yeah, for the longest time, it really bugged me and it stressed me out that, oh man, there's this problem and it keeps happening.
Yeah.
Well, some problems in business you just have to continually manage, and they're not going to go away. And it's something that you have to reframe a mindset on, or view from a different vantage point, in order to not allow it to affect other and spill into other aspects of the business. But
That's so
I
true.
I like what you say about finding and surrounding yourself with those who are ahead of you, those who are where you're at, and those who are behind you. I think that's a good thing. Are there things that you learned in the businesses you've owned and managed that are pretty universal, besides just surrounding yourself with people to help you in the race? What are some of
Yeah.
those things that you see are applicable in the dental industry, in terms of like managing a team, or multiple practices? There's
Yeah.
different types of practice owners, but what are some of those generic business concepts that you think are helpful?
Yeah, I think one that's super relevant with a couple of people I'm walking with right now, and as well as some recent personal experiences. It's such a It sounds cliche and it's so simple, and yet we so often don't do it. And it's just lead by example. Um,
Mm.
I'm working with a leader right now who has not dental specifically, but has a team of about 10 people in a very similar business model to dental, very similar. And one of his big frustrations as he's growing and scaling his business to multiple sites is that his team was failing to be engaged regularly, failing to show up on time, or
Mm.
disengaging early, which I know is a common problem in dental. And so I sat with him real quick and just observed him for only about 2 days. And I very quickly realized he's going to be the last one to a meeting, this leader. He's going to be the first one to pull out his phone. And so he is doing all the things he doesn't want his team to do. And, as
Mm.
I'm thinking back in my own career, and, I've led teams of hundreds and I've led teams of just a couple people. Uh, if you're not willing to do it, and I think it goes to willingness too. Like if you're not willing to scrub the toilets, quite literally, um, you know, why do you expect your team to do something you're not willing to do? And if you
Mm.
demand that the team shows up and writes in complete sentences and is in their email or whatever your pet peeve is, and you send them a quick text and use shorthand, why would they ever do something different than what you're modeling for them? So I think just practice what you preach. I know it's so simple, but I've just seen that several times, even this week, that
Mm.
it's a leadership failure if you don't practice what you preach.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I saw somewhere this week, it stuck out to me, like we train people how to react with us, how to show up for us, by how we
Hmm.
say things, what we allow, what we do.
Yeah.
Being a leader. There's so many different facets to that. Um, and then you, if you're not learning that lesson, you just keep learning it over. It just still keeps showing up until you do learn that lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, cool. What are some like epiphanies, or what's like, this is what I ask everybody on the show.
Hmm.
What's like a big domino? Like if you could just help a doctor learn. If you just push this one domino over, it's going to have this effect that knocks everything else down and really opens up so many other things for them. In
Yeah.
the dentists you've worked with and talked with, what's one of those
Mm.
things?
Again, this is one of those simple things. And honestly, when I first heard it, it's not unique to me. I refused to do it because I thought it was stupid and trivial. Just be totally honest. I thought I was above it, didn't need to do it. But this has truly transformed not only me and how I run and lead different businesses and have over the years, but also those that I get the opportunity to work with and help them lead and empower them to lead. And it's really simple. But someone once said, take out a piece of paper and I'm going to have you write down a couple things. But the first one is your priorities, and these are not goals. These are not I want X million dollars in my bank account by this time or the size house. These are things that pretty much never change. Where you prioritize family as compared to work. And so I took that one step forward with the people I work with, and I say, okay, priorities are good, but there's two other P's that are really important as well. What is your purpose? Why do you do what you do every day? Is it to make people smile? Yes, double entendre there. Or is it to, for me, it's to inspire a positive change. Is everyone better having worked with me than before? And the question is, oh, have you ever had to fire someone? Yes. And my hope is that their experience still was good enough that they've learned and are better. Doesn't mean that, we're always hugging and kissing as we say goodbye, but you still try to foster that environment. So that's my purpose statement. I've got my priorities and then the principles. And this is another one where, it's like the 18-year-old that's at college and is choosing whether or not to drink alcohol for the first time. If they have not already said no to that, they're almost always going to say yes when it's handed to them. When that situation comes, when you're in that tough situation, you almost always say the thing that you probably wouldn't have said if you thought about it. And so the third thing to write on that paper, you've got your purpose, you've got your priorities, and then you've got your principles. What are those never wavering things? I'm not going to ever engage in anything that's a little bit iffy when it comes to Medicaid, Medicare. Yes, that in your head, that sounds right. But when it comes and you have the option to put that code in because something isn't going through, like all of those things, if you write those down and have those answers before you come to that situation, you're going to be so much better equipped for the battle. And the decisions aren't as hard to make in real time.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. Being intentional, having foresight, and direction. Like, what am I doing? What's my
Yeah.
purpose? Where do I want to go with this company? What do I want to do with my practice? What do I want my patients to experience when they come here with my team? And then staying committed to that. I think that's, definitely highly successful people have that trait, I think. Well,
Absolutely.
this has been awesome. One more thing to kind of close us off here. We've got just a couple more minutes. What's been something that, like, if you look back on your career, what's been a really cool experience? What's been something that's like, man, this was something that I really am grateful for, or something that was neat. Like maybe you met somebody, like a big wig, some high individual that,
Oh man,
well, is that
that's tough.
planting any?
I've had so many cool opportunities. I think two
You've
things come
worked
to
with
mind.
some cool brands.
Yeah. One is like a recurring one. And I think that is early on, I structured in my life that my family can come with me on most trips, or trips that are longer than about 2 days. That's kind of a rule. It's in my speaker rider. It's in my consulting agreements. And so my boys have traveled all over the world. And my wife and I have been able to go and extend some trips on some cool vacations over our time together. So that's one cool thing that I think is just it's something that was important to me. And that means if they're not coming, I'm not staying 5 days at a conference. I'm in and out for when I speak. And often it's the same day, flight in the morning, flight out. So I think that's one cool thing. And then I think totally, probably not even professional. It was, I'll call it pre-professional, or pre the career that people know me for. I had an opportunity to work with a nonprofit organization for a while in developing countries, in countries that a lot of people didn't even know where they were in the world or what continent they were on. And I got to work with some government officials there in those countries and just watch how we could impact economic development in some of these developing countries in really cool ways. And so that's something I don't share often, but still, as I look back, probably one of the coolest things, being able to go to these countries and just meet different people and different language and different cultures, countries that most Americans haven't heard of, and just really watch them thrive in an entrepreneurial way that is so simple but
cool.
so beautiful.
Yeah, having that impact, I bet, is a really neat experience. That's cool. Well, thank you, Ryan, for your time. Thank you for the advice. I think there's a lot of gold nuggets in here that you guys can glean from Ryan. If you want to get to know Ryan better, send him to your website or reach out in some way. RyanVet.com.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you again, everybody. If you want any more information about Ryan, go to his website, like I said, and we'll see you guys on the next time on the Marketing 32 show. And like I said, if you need help with your marketing, go to marketing32.com. We've got an awesome team. We know what we're doing. Helped over 240 practices to grow across the US. And now we're in international in some other countries as well. But thanks again, Ryan, and we'll see you next time.